Hi, Dom. You good, good. You're muted.
Oh, there we go. Hi, how are
Hi. Good, good. How you doing?
I'm
Good,
good.
good. You look beautiful in your whole setup there.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Yep, yep. Hold on a second. I got this other.
See here. Okay.
Okay, I'm listening to myself. Can you hear me? No. So where is that coming from?
You hearing some noise?
Yeah, I don't know why I'm hearing a rebound on me.
I don't know. I hear
Okay.
you nice and clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Okay. All right. So I have we're live on YouTube, and I had the volume on the YouTube up, so it's delayed. So I was hearing in my headphones the YouTube, but I silenced the YouTube
Okay.
now. Okay, good. So let's see, how much time have we got here?
We got about 15 minutes or so.
Okay, good. So we had like 400 people sign up.
What? Really?
Yeah, but I I don't know. I was on vacation. I didn't realize that I couldn't upgrade to a webinar, so we may only be able to get 100 people in. So we're live streaming to YouTube
Okay. I
for
see.
the
So
overflow.
you couldn't upgrade to a webinar. Do you know why?
They said 24 hours. You'll get notice in 24 hours, and I did it last night. So
Oh, you missed the boat,
yeah,
Richard.
I did. I did miss the boat, and so um, right, we may get 100. We may not get over 100. Who knows who's going to show
I
up?
mean, but 400 signups, has that ever happened before?
No, not to me. It hasn't happened
Oh,
before.
Richard, I
Yeah.
think something's happening here.
Yes, I think so. But it may be the topic too. So, but we may be getting bigger. We may need more money. We
You
may
know,
need to. Yeah,
yes, and
yeah.
I have been, I mean, I know I'm so busy, but to be completely honest with you, I've been talking about this to a lot of people and a lot of
Okay.
important people. I wouldn't be surprised if, a lot of the people that we've spoken to or that I've spoken to are really interested in seeing what we're discussing. I really think we make quite a good team, you and I.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think
I'd like that. I'd like that
I think it's
because it.
I think we're compelling to people, which is very important.
Yeah, yeah. Sounds great. Sounds great. I'd like to do more of these things together.
Okay. I
Yeah,
may this is
yeah,
this is what I'm here for. I love supporting it. And if this is actually helping fuel and grow something you haven't seen before, then let's
yeah,
absolutely do it.
yeah. Sounds great. Sounds great. Do you have any? I won't let you do you first. So you'll speak first, and then what I was thinking is that we'd have opportunity for people to ask you questions there.
Okay.
So we'll break it up a little bit,
Okay.
and then I'll come in and I'll do my little thing there, and then we'll have another opportunity for us to take questions, for you to respond and take questions and so forth, and then we'll be done in an hour and a half, hopefully.
Okay. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's good. I think it's important to make sure that we curate the time appropriately so it doesn't go
Uh,
too long. So, because people will
uh,
start dropping off.
yeah, yeah.
So I think the time, I mean, I've done so many of these. I feel like the human attention span these days, an
Mm,
hour is good. After an
yeah.
hour, it starts to drop off fast.
Okay. All
And we
right.
really want to get everyone to really get the full breadth and width of what we're sharing together.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
So,
mhm.
so let's see. I'm waiting for somebody else to come in to sort of help with the technical thing. So I'm kind of on my own here.
Okay.
So I've got to put a message in the chat, I'll probably be doing that while you're speaking to let people who sign in, if it goes over 100, to let people know where to go link on YouTube and
Right.
stuff like that if they get locked out. And then I also probably will be sharing some of the things that I'm going to be talking about in the chat as well. So,
Okay. Okay, I think that sounds good. And, you know, how I'm going to approach it in the outset is really talking about, of course, what we all know just happened
right.
with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, how the impact that it's already having on communities, discussing that a little bit. And then really talking about this intersectionality between Christianity, democracy, and abortion, and really the thread between the three.
Okay. Hi, Ellie. How you doing? Ellie's my assist is going to help out here. This is Dom Jones. I don't know if you've ever met Dom before, Ellie.
Not one-to-one, I don't think.
Yeah.
Hello,
Okay.
Ellie. How are you?
Good. Good.
All right.
Right. Okay. So let me share something in the chat here that I'm actually I'm going to send it to the meeting, but I want to let's go. All right. And so I may need to share that in the chat. Okay, so I need to let you know, Ellie, that we had 400 people signed up for this. And but I didn't get I couldn't upgrade to a webinar. It said it was going to take 24 hours. I thought it would be easy. So we're doing overflow into the to live stream at YouTube. And so I just put that link there in the chat, some instructions. I'm going to be putting that in the try to send a message to anybody in the waiting room. But, you know, let people in the waiting room, but I think we're limited to 100 people, so that 100 people, we're going to want to send this link to the waiting room. So let me make you a co-host here, okay? I'll make you a co-host, and I'm going to make Don a co-host. Okay, and Ellie, let's see, make you a co-host. Okay. All right, so you're now a co-host, okay? So if you open up the participants menu, you might see message there. And if you click that, you can send a message in a pop-up on the chat thing, waiting room participants. So you can send a message to the waiting room participants. And we can just copy, if you copy this, you can just paste it in when you see people in the waiting room.
And I do what I paste this and put it for one for each one of them, huh?
Well, just into the waiting room area when you see there are people in the waiting room, but we have 100 people already in the meeting, and it won't admit anybody else.
Okay.
And people are entering right now, Richard, already, lots of people.
Yeah, lots of people are here already. And what time do we have? We have about 10 minutes. I just let Denise in.
So like right now, that's it. There's 12 people in the waiting room. I blued your instructions, and where do I paste it onto?
Well, if you go to the chat, right? You go to the chat and you open up the chat, and then you have this 2, and you can see it has waiting room participants as one that you can choose. Do you see that?
Let me see. I'm here on the participants thing.
Well, you can see message there. You see where it says message, right? Just click that. It'll open up for you. And you'll see that it will say 2 waiting room participants. You see that? If you click message.
Let me see. Yes.
It says 2 waiting room participants. And then you just paste that in there.
Got you.
And then send it.
Got you.
Okay.
I think as limited as I am with technology, I think I did it.
Okay, good. So, All right, so we're gonna do that. And Denise is here. Hopefully, hi Denise.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes. So I'm gonna go ahead and start recording now. That way I don't forget. Okay. So we're recording now. And so I'm going to have to handle the spotlighting, which I'm going to end up doing. So so that's the only new thing. Let's see. And Denise, I started the recording, so we've got that done. And let's see, we've got 7 minutes. We've got 19 people. So like I said to Ellie, I screwed up. I didn't realize that it was going to take 24 hours for me to get to upgrade to a webinar. And it's $200. It's $200 to upgrade to a webinar. And if we're getting this big, we're going to need to upgrade. So we're going to need to start raising money, I think, to help pay for some of these expenses. But yeah, so I couldn't do it in time. So we might hit some overflow. So let me see if I can. I'm going to spotlight. So all right. So if I spotlight myself, all of you are seeing me, right? And not one another.
Yes.
Okay. So that way, boy, I feel like camera angle's weird. But that way, nobody can sort of click or come in and sort of interrupt the video feed of the person speaking. So I'll handle that. Any questions?
Not so far, and I'll just wait for your cue to let people in, right?
Yeah, we're gonna wait until the time to start pretty soon here to let people in, because even after we let people in, we're gonna have to wait to let people in. Oh, yeah. So,
How many are signed up or waiting to get in?
well, they're
23
27.
this time. I got 23. Okay.
Yeah, 23 waiting. There's like I told Ellie, we had 400 people registered, but I didn't upgrade to a webinar in time, and it's $200.
Well, how many can you get in without the webinar?
I think only 100.
Well, you won't have that.
Well, if we have 100, if it goes under 100, we have overflow. We're live to YouTube right now. So we're going to be sending them a message. But other than that, looks like everything's going to be a go here. And I sent an email message telling everybody. And Denise, do you want to be a co-host? Probably not. So I made you.
No, I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I made you a co-host,
okay. All right.
Good. So you have access to the whole board and everything, and you can let people in.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good. It's it's okay, Richard, that you didn't, things happen, and that's crazy. It costs $200 to do the webinar thing. That's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand 199, but 200.
Yeah. It's actually 199. Yeah.
Oh, that extra dollar just makes you go, oh.
It used to be less. It used to be like $50. And
but see, with everything happening these days and just everything is on Zoom, it's like boop, boop.
Yeah, going up. If we're going to have to raise money to pay for that if we keep getting this type of turnout.
Well, we're doing the good work, I feel, and we're talking about things that we care about. And through conversation and discussion, we're creating solutions and getting our feet going. So, you know, Richard, what you started it has legs.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Denise, have you met Dom?
Yeah, I was on the webinar when she was on before.
Oh, cool, cool.
I've
Okay,
seen
we
you.
talked before, right?
Yeah, I've seen
Oh,
you
you
at different events, pictures in Orange County. What area do you live?
I live in Huntington. I'm all along coastal Orange County.
Okay, I'm in Boynton Park.
You're in Buena Park. Have we seen each other?
Not in person, but I've seen you in different pictures at events. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah. Well, we've yet to meet, my friend.
Yeah.
Well, I'm out in Huntington Beach every Sunday, every weekend to go bodyboarding for the summer.
Oh, that's fun.
I went on vacation. I went to Palm Desert of all places, because that's where I got the company timeshare. And it was a poker vacation. I left with $200. I came back with $2,600.
Yay!
Yeah, after playing poker. So, and then I went up on the tramway. If you've ever been on that goes up the mountain there.
Oh, the tramway. I've never been.
No, it's beautiful. You got to go if you're out in Palm Springs.
Okay.
So yeah, saw a few things. So
It's good to change the scene of what we see every day, isn't it? Something how vacations can do that and make us feel so refreshed, and so that's good to change the visual in front of your eyes.
Yeah, it also gave me time to work on the presentation that I had to do too. So,
all right, yes.
But,
you know what? I'm a bit of a glutton for a good vacation and working at the same time.
Yeah, me too. But I hope I didn't do as detailed, because I was up till 3:00 playing poker every night. So, but man, the games were good. So,
all right. Yeah, the numbers are going up fast.
Yeah, we're at 52 now. And so we'll likely get to 100, but maybe not. Maybe it'd be, but at least we have it live on YouTube so people can go there, and we have a link for them. So it's 2:00. You ready to let everybody in?
Yes.
Everybody ready? Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. Hello, everyone. People are logging in now. So we're going to wait a few minutes for people to log in before we begin. Thank you for coming. My name is Rich Procida. I'm with the Truth and Democracy Coalition. I'll tell you quite a bit about myself today. We're a group fighting to, let's see, how have we got? To build a pro-democracy movement in America. Thank you, Jeffrey. All right.
I was going to say, can I say something to help with that idea?
Yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey.
I created an organization, an organization that's soon become international. It's called the Stop Democracide International. The goal of the democracide will be the crime of stopping or hindering of democracy. I want to make that an official law. What do you think about that idea?
Well, that's interesting. That's interesting. So,
if you're interested, I got a Facebook page about it. Do you want me to share the link?
Yeah, please. Everybody feel free to share in the chat. We usually, the chat is kind of the wild, wild west here. We also, I was unable to turn this into a webinar. So I think now's the time we're at 100 people. Now's the time to start sending something to people, telling them about that. We're also live on YouTube. And so for the overflow of people who can't get in. Oh, we're going over. We're getting over 100. Oh, it's letting people in. Let's keep letting people in,
Mhm.
because that way, if it goes over 100, that. All right. People are still coming in. Okay.
Can I
Thank you,
mention-
Yel.
Should I mention
Go
the
ahead.
idea again because of more people coming in?
Yes, sure.
Okay. Stop Democracide International. The goal, they're looking at the Facebook page, and it's going to be a global campaign to establish a law of democracide, making large-scale and systematic destruction of democracide an international crime alongside war crimes, genocide, and crimes against humanity. That's the goal. I put
All
democracide.
right.
The definition is the stopping or hindering of democracy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to create that. So I had that idea for a while, but I just haven't got the name until I saw the ecocide movement. That's when I got the name democracide. But somebody else created that word. So I'm trying to use it as a way to create this group, create this organization.
Well, great, great. I'm really glad that you're doing that. In fact, everything that everybody is doing here, from working on campaigns to speaking to your neighbors, they're all important things to do to fight for democracy, to work toward democracy. And I'm so glad that it's allowing us to have more than 100 participants right now. So something must have worked there. So because I was late in making this into a webinar or upgrading my plan. So, and thank you, Denise. The Jan 6th hearings, if you want to talk to people about the Jan 6th hearings are coming up on, you said Tuesday and Thursday, Denise? Yes, Tuesday and
Yes.
Thursday.
Yes.
All right.
Tuesday will be like 10 o'clock Pacific time, and then Thursday it's supposed to be about 5. I'm not sure the exact time on Thursday, but in the evening.
Okay. All right. I just came back from vacation. I went to the desert, and it was kind of a poker vacation. I won $2,400 playing poker. So, I didn't get in time to register this, but we're plus 100 people, so that's good. All right, how much time? Okay, so it's 5 minutes after. Keep letting people in, Ellie, as they come in, and we'll go ahead and get started here.
Can I make a correction to what she said about the Thursday one?
Yes, go ahead, Jeffrey.
The date hasn't been announced. The date's been announced, but not the time. I looked at the Wikipedia page. And it doesn't say the time yet.
Right. I said I didn't know the time for sure. I just knew the date on Thursday.
Okay.
All righty.
Okay, so keep letting people in, Ellie, as we begin. All right, we're ready to begin, Jeffrey. If you could mute yourself there so we don't get the background noise.
All right, just one last thing to say, okay?
Okay.
If you're interested in joining Democracide, the Democracide movement, then just go click on the links to the Facebook page or the Facebook group that to get started, including you. That includes even you, Richard.
Okay, thank you. When I get a chance, and I'm going to be putting links in the chat and mentioning links here as well. So my name is Rich Procida. I'm an author and attorney. I'm the founder of the Truth and Democracy Coalition, and we're working to build a pro-democracy movement in America. We're going to need Americans of all political persuasions to support democracy. If, God forbid, we have to overthrow a dictatorship. So we need to enlist our institutions, from businesses and the church to government institutions and the military to media outlets. We need to all get them on our side and get them promoting democracy and not supporting efforts that oppose it or undermine our democracy. So We're going to need conservatives, moderates, and liberals to come together to defend democracy. We need to reach across political lines. And that was one of the episodes we did with our guest today, Dom Jones, reaching out across political lines. And you can find all these shows on our YouTube page. You can go to tinyurl.com/democracy under fire video. That'll take you straight to our YouTube page, or you can just search for Democracy Under Fire on our YouTube page, and you'll find all our shows. So we're doing this work in a number of ways, from holding meetings like this, producing media, which is a very person, producing counter propaganda, organizing local actions with our other coalitions and other groups. So we're working to build this pro-democracy movement by doing all these different types of activities. And I want to encourage you to share these shows with others, and so that we can get this message out to others as well. That's part of my activism, is to do these shows and to edit and produce these podcasts so that we can get some counter propaganda to oppose the propaganda that's being fed to people by more nefarious sources. So before we begin, I want to tell you about an upcoming event we're having, where we hold these monthly meetings every second Sunday of the month at 2 p.m. Pacific time, where we discuss issues related to democracy. And our next meeting on August 14th at 2 p.m., we're having a Swedish researcher and a Swedish activist come talk to us about climate change and democracy, hope or hindrance. So to register for that event, go to tinyurl.com/climate democracy. I'll put these links in the chat a little later. We also have a podcast called Democracy Under Fire, and this meeting is going to be edited and produced as a podcast. And you can, as I said, you can find our show at tinyurl.com/democracy under fire video, or just search for it on YouTube. Or you can listen to the audio version on our anchor page, Democracy Under Fire, or you can search for Democracy Under Fire, or another podcast I do, and I produce this podcast and send it out on the same feed as my Bible Study for Progressives podcast. So if you can't find Democracy Under Fire, search for Bible Study for Progressives. You'll find the shows there. We have two speakers today. One is me, but more about me a little later. In the first part of the program, we will have Dom Jones speak. Then we'll have time for comments and questions. And then after that, I will do my short presentation, and then we'll have times for discussion, comments, and questions with both of our speakers. And then we'll close with a few actions and reminders. So Dom Jones is a former missionary and an ordained minister who aims to address our country's difficulties. As an African-American woman, she speaks about how her lived experience speaks to our current controversies, and she seeks to foster unity through collaboration, education, and wellness. And so at this time, I'd like to hand it over to Dom Jones. Welcome, Dom.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for having me. And I want to say hello to everyone, to all of you that I spoke with the last time I was on. Hello again. It's so good to see everyone. And I mean, we've come together for another really important cause, another important mission, and another important reason. And so we all recognize what has just occurred with the overturning of Roe v. Wade by the Supreme Court of the United States. And that has vastly already begun to impact our nation in a way that really it's hard for many people. And the thing about it is that a lot of people are feeling that their rights and the things that they hold dear, the power over their own bodies, are being overlooked and are being usurped. And I want to kind of start with you all with an understanding of my background. So I was raised evangelical Christian. I was actually born and raised. My grandmother, my parents, I have a huge history in my family. And it's a joke commonly in my family that the first book that I read was the Bible, because I knew the stories about Moses and Noah before I knew ABCs. So you know, it was something that I loved growing up, you guys. I loved learning about the scriptures. I know from Genesis to Revelation. And really, it was a strong foundation for me growing up to build my life upon, despite the things that I went through. I went on, because I loved it so much, to become a missionary, which means I traveled across the country and the world to teach others about the beliefs I held at that time. And on top of that, I was an ordained minister. So what I did is I went and I talked to people about the scriptures, about the Bible. And I say this because of this reason. There was a time that I actually believed that abortion was just wrong. If you did it, it was completely not okay. And, you know, I held those beliefs very strongly. I was very stoic about them. And as I grew in my life and I grew up into myself, into who I have become today, my authentic self, I have harmonized and embraced my beliefs that I grow up with my real understanding of the world and other people who do not believe what I believe. And that's okay. So I say that to say this. It is everyone's inherent right, when you were born, no matter what religion you are, to live your life the way you choose. Whether I believe it's proper or accurate is really irrelevant. It's up to you to decide what you want for yourself. That being the case, this is not an easy topic for us to discuss, is it? It can be very divisive. We need to learn how to have conversations in a kind and a loving way. We must learn to be okay with disagreeing and not maligning a person's character by their beliefs. So what the Supreme Court has done by saying that women federally in our country cannot obtain an abortion, they have chosen to marry a Christian belief with our law. And we all know that there is supposed to be in separation of church and state. Now, I want to give us a little bit of background before I continue. I don't know if you guys recall, but when Governor Greg Abbott signed Texas Law SB, last year, he provided a really often heard statement in Texas when he said, "Our Creator endowed us with the right to life." Now, Abbott's religious invocation to justify Texas law begs the question, though, whose vision of a creator exactly? It's important for us to recognize that the United States is more diverse now than it has ever been, my friends. We are a country of over 330 million people who participate and who practice every major world religion, with a growing number practicing nothing in particular. Views on abortion vary widely, both among and within religious denominations. And all of these perspectives, my friends, are protected equally under the U.S. Constitution by the Establishment and Free Exercise Clauses of the First Amendment, which together protect the fundamental right to hold religious beliefs of one's choosing while ensuring that the government remains neutral when it comes to matters of faith. And let's pause there. The government remaining neutral. Is our Supreme Court right now showing that it is remaining neutral? I encourage you to answer that question for yourselves, and we're going to have more discussion about that. And among the most deeply shameful moments in our nation's history, has been the legal system's justification for brutal racism. Notice this, and discrimination on the basis of religion. Going back to at least 1852, when the Missouri Supreme Court upheld enslavement in America in an opinion that asserted the following: the introduction of slavery amongst us was, quote, in the providence of God. So alarmingly, not only have we approached, my friends, but we are standing upon the commingling of religion and government on the issue of abortion in our country, not just certain states, not limited to Texas. And it's important to understand that many Christian beliefs vary on the issue of abortion. See, one need only take the vast array of, quote, the friend of the court briefs filled in the Supreme Court in Dobbs to understand the sheer complexity and span of religious views that coexist in the United States. For example, Catholics for Choice and the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops put forth competing views, notice this, of what it means to adhere to the Catholic faith. One group's brief advocates for reproductive rights within the teachings of the church, while the other interprets those same teachings to portray abortion as an unspeakable crime. Here's another one. The same goes for various Jewish organizations and religious leaders who embrace a wide range of understandings and interpretations of the role and permissibility of abortion in Judaism and have filed dueling briefs. Some Lutherans and Protestant groups have registered their support for the ban that has happened in Mississippi, while some Muslim, Presbyterian, humanist, and even atheist groups want the court to strike it down. The very problems the First Amendment was designed to avoid, public divisiveness and social conflict based on religious difference, are on full display right now. Diversity of thought, my friends, my fellow Americans, who I appreciate you all and I love you no matter what you believe, because we are in this country together. Diversity of thought exists within every religion and includes those who believe their faith compels them, right, to support reproductive rights. I understand that because I was of that kind. And notice, I want to share something with you guys. The late Dr. George Tiller, for example, he was murdered a little over a decade ago by an anti-choice zealot, and he was known to be a devout Lutheran who considered his abortion practice a spiritual calling. This is his choice. Another provider, Dr. Ben Brown, recently said that he believes that his work is an expression of his, quote, Quaker values. Faith leaders like Reverend Dr. William J. Barber II of the Poor People's Campaign have long supported reproductive justice as a part of their religious missions, and many more have voiced their support for access to abortion in the wake of what happened in the SB 8's passage. So lawmakers and political leaders who tout religion-based rationales for abortion restrictions not only disregard these differing powerful convictions, but they aim to enshrine one slightly narrow theological interpretation into law. It's important that we understand that it is dangerous for religion to be a proxy for policy or a substitute for science. The First Amendment gives us the right to debate the meaning of life and when it begins. But it also says that such debates have no place in our legislatures or courts or law if we are to be a society that fosters democracy and religious freedom for all. So I say all of this, my friends, because we see religion, abortion, and our government have created an intersectionality here. And it's dangerous. It's dangerous because what it does also is it violates many of the young ones growing up, my friends. The young ones growing up who are trying to express themselves and their freedoms. If they feel that for them having a child, if they are to become pregnant, is not for them, if it was the product of incestuous circumstances, okay? If it was the product of rape, oh my gosh, that just hurts to say. But if it's the product of that, Each person in their own right gets to decide. And that's what this boils down to, my friends and my loves. It boils down to understanding what right, and I see many of you here, Sheila, Leslie, William, Udell, Laura, Edward, Ellie, what right do any of us have to tell another human being, hey, your body doesn't belong to you anymore. You can't do what you decide to do because I think it's wrong. That is a grievous overstep of human behavior and connection. I'm here in Huntington Beach, and I'm a community leader. I own a gym. I'm a health and wellness advocate, and I support young people who are struggling in their lives because there was a time in my life, my friends, that I was on the street. I wasn't always where I am today. I was born to a mother of 13 years old. I grew up without a home and on the street. I had to fight to be where I am today. I say what I say from a place of empathy and love, not of dictation, not of anything, because I am just like you. And the more I know, guess what? Quite frankly, I realize the more I don't know. We all get to be humble. We all get to listen and grow in wisdom all the days of our lives. So I say this to you because I want you guys all, when you speak to your family and your friends, when you commune with yourself about your own thoughts and feelings, human connection is central to human behavior. What we have begun to do as a country with the Supreme Court's ruling is overstep that connection and aim to tell others what they must do. Our country needs to unify. And we might say, well, Dom, how are we going to do that? Because we disagree on everything. Well, that's just the point. We may disagree on many things, but what do we always agree on, my friends? What do we all want? Do you want love in your life? Because I certainly do. Do you want a whole family that loves you and friends that support you in a circle? I certainly do. I think you do too. Do you want security? I do. I think you do too. And do you want to feel respected and dignified and live your life according to how you desire? I think you do. And I do too. We all have that in common. Republican, independent, Democrat, anything. We all have that in common. Once we get to that as the crux, once we start speaking that into existence, once we start embracing that more, yes, we have different ideas of how to achieve it. I understand that. But we can learn how to stop fighting and letting people in the powers that be exploit us. They're exploiting us. They're dividing us, and they are aiming to conquer us. Because I tell you this, I said this before, I'll say it again. If you were in a tragic car accident and you needed an organ, and I unfortunately passed away, and my organ was available to you, you would not care what I look like. You would not care what the color of my skin was. Would you ask the doctor, now tell me, is she Black? Now, there is no way in the world you care. You say, oh, please give me this heart so I can live. What does that tell you? You know what it tells us all, my loves, that we are all the same. Uh-oh, dare we say we are already unified? My heart will beat inside you, just as yours will beat inside me. We both bleed red. This color, your beautiful color, is nothing but art on a mural. We don't all want blue flowers now, do we? So we're all different colors for variety, not for judgment, not for criticism, and not to hurt one another and oppress one another. And when we oppress, the oppressor and the oppressed are both negatively impacted. So, abortion, religion, the overturning of Roe v. Wade. What are we to do? We get to continue to have these discussions. And I want you to remember that these discussions are not fruitless. They are fruitful. I was on this show before, and there were less than 100 people. We have had over 400 signups to this show. What does that tell you? We're galvanizing. Yes, Elizabeth, I see you clapping. Can we all get a clap for that? Can we get a clap for that? Oh, yes. Hallelujah. We are all, this is great because this is a movement. This is a movement for change, and it starts doing what you're doing right now. We are having the conversation. Yes, Dulce, we are having the conversations. We are trusting one another in a safe space. We are not going to speak negatively over one another to each other. We're going to practice right now being unified. And here in Huntington Beach, where I am and where you are, I am galvanizing the communities that are around me to bring and to build and to nourish so that we can build our democracy even better. Because guess what? You know it has to be protected. We must protect it because there are powers that are aiming to take it down, authoritarian regimes. Can we say the word? Because sometimes the media doesn't want to say it. Dictators. Dictators who want to usurp our country. And if we continue down the path we are going to be easily overtaken. Rome, one of the greatest civilizations to ever stand. We're a baby nation, over 200, we're a baby nation. They stood for thousands of years and they failed. We need to fight for this beautiful country. We need to remember that we are all one, and each person has the right to determine what they want to do with their bodies. So our Supreme Court, what it is doing right now, it is delegitimizing itself by conducting itself in a manner that is because they have a supermajority in the conservative faction of the court. Okay? What they are doing is they are pushing forward theology into law. And they are blazing forward without any kind of hold. Are we going to sit there and allow it? Are we going to sit there and allow the Supreme Court to not be checked and balanced? Legislative, executive, and judicial, we must check one another, and it is going unchecked. We are a nation of voices. We are a nation of energy, and other countries look to us to be that galvanizing force on the world scene. So I call on you all, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Greens, everything. Yes, Kathy, all of us together. Work together. Do you want to expand the court? What are your thoughts on that? Do you want to do more to protect and codify Roe v. Wade in different states? California is working on that right now. What are your thoughts on that? How can we do it? I want to hear what you have to say. Richard, he wants to hear what you have to say. These hundreds of people who are listening want to hear what you have to say, because what you have to say can very well be the answer. So raise your voice, my friends. Raise your hearts. Let's work together. Keep building our country and remembering that whether it's abortion, whether it's religion, whether it's race or any other social or civic matter, at the end of the day, we are a country that must fight for our unity, and we must not allow power, greed, and an overtaking to usurp our great land. So thank you guys so much, and I turn it right back over to you, Richard. Richard, we can't hear you.
Okay. So can you hear me now?
Now, yes.
Am I coming through okay? My voice is with my mouth. Good, good. Okay, so we're going to take some questions now. And so to do that, in the participants menu, you'll see, let me see if it's there. Is it participants menu? Or is it the reactions menu? Yeah, the reactions menu. Thank you. Reactions menu, there's a raise hand feature. So go to the reactions, it's at the bottom of your screen, and raise your hand. That will be the easiest way for us to answer the questions. We may not be able to see everything in the chat and get to it if it's in the chat, So our first question is looks like it's from Jeffrey. So go ahead and unmute Jeffrey.
So you're saying the Supreme Court is trying to turn America into a theocracy, right? From a democracy into a theocracy, correct?
They are certainly pushing theological principles into law.
Well, you know my idea. The Stop Democrocide International. The law is saying attempting to turn our democracy into a theocracy. One of the three things would be against the law. If it's opposed. That's why I created Stop Democrocide International, so we can stop stuff like this. And if the Supreme Court is breaking this law, they should be brought to justice.
Absolutely.
So
and Jeffrey, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, would you like to join the organization?
Certainly send me your information. I'll definitely look into it. I want to commend you, honestly, Jeffrey, for starting your organization that's trying to not allow our country to be overtaken by things that are unethical, by some standards immoral, and just an overreach of power. We need you to do that. And I want to encourage you to continue to fight for those principles that you believe in so that our country is fair for all. It's a beautiful thing. And, you are to be commended for that. So I encourage you to continue doing what you're doing. Your organization, what you're creating matters, and definitely send me your information.
Technically, it's not a real organization right now. Right now, I don't have the money to make them to do that because I don't have the money to do that. And right now, it's just the only thing it's active on is on Facebook. So until I can get a team and money together, like the stuff that do it. To create a nonprofit organization, it's going to be like this for a while.
All right. Thank you, Jeffrey. So if you can turn on your camera when you speak, it would be nice. Otherwise, that way we can see your lovely face. Otherwise, it's up to you. It doesn't matter.
The problem with that is I'm worried it might crash my Zoom.
Okay, don't.
It's too many people on that. I'm worried if it could crash my,
Okay, sure.
Last time.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Jeffrey. Now, next up is Don. So here you go, Don.
Hi, Dom. Thank you both. Dom is great, very inspiring talk. One of the things that I was really looking to get out of this this presentation or this discussion is how can I want to be able to understand sort of Catholic theology as it relates to, so in other words, if I'm talking to a Catholic friend and, they understand their Bible and I want to kind of point somewhere that says, okay, here's where the teachings of Jesus or whatever command us to support women's reproductive rights, abortion, etc. And I'm wondering if you could talk to that, if not on the Catholic side, but maybe also on the evangelical Christian side. And if not, could you sort of put in the chat maybe some links to, liberal or whatever you want to call them, theologists in traditional religions that I might be able to see some of those, parables or whatever, what parts of those biblical passages I can point to and say, look, read that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you, Don. By the way, I'm Dom, so D-O-M as in Mary, you're Don as in D-O-N, and I'm always correcting people because they think I'm Don. So right. You're my doppelganger in name.
Okay.
But to your point, yes, it's interesting because I myself, as being raised as a Christian, very much understand Catholic ideology and beliefs. And the Bible is something that I've always read the scriptures of. And the very first thing that, comes to my mind, and I'm sure someone on the other side of this issue could use the same scripture for their thought. But the scripture of, when Christ Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself, you see, that's a very important scripture, because really, and also there's a scripture that says, love thy neighbor as yourself. And there's another scripture, it'll come to me in a second. But the reason why I bring that particular one up, Don, is because really nobody wants to be forced to do anything they don't want to do. It's not a complicated thing, right? None of us want to be forced. And by forcing a woman, I'm going to just say it because I don't know if you guys noticed recently in the news, there was a situation of a young girl who was like 10 years old, and she was unfortunately violated in Brazil, and they tried to force her to have a child. And she was able to get an abortion, but could you imagine? Oh my God, right? But the point is that that's not a loving thing to do. There was in Ohio too. Yes, Tim, it was one in Brazil and one in Ohio. Excellent. But that's not a loving thing to do. That young girl has already been through trauma. So let alone put her through this because of my belief, let's say, hypothetically, that I think, she must have this child. You see, that's not loving her. That's actually, quite frankly, putting more pain to her. So that's one thought. There is another scripture that is Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. And you guys, I'm a bit of a biblical nerd, so pardon me. But to answer Don's question, Genesis 2:7, it's about breath must come first. It says, and the Lord of God formed a man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. So that's Genesis 2:7. Okay. Now, this verse talks about the creation of Adam, and it specifically states that God formed Adam from dust, but he wasn't yet a living soul. Okay. So not until God breathed life into this inhuman form did it become alive. So if Adam, the first human to ever exist, had to take a breath before being considered a living soul, literally in the scriptures, if that's what someone ascribes to, why is the same not true for unborn fetuses? So I hope that's helpful to you, Don. Yes.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Don. And the next up is going to be Barbara. So you can go ahead and unmute Barbara.
There we go. So I have an observation or a little factoid of interest, and then a specific question. For those of you who may or not be familiar with our military academies, they recognized when they founded West Point the value of an officer corps that was representative of the entire country, that was diverse, which is why very specifically every congressional district gets an appointment to the academy to make sure that these folks in charge of our military, for the most part, did represent all parts of the country. And I have often wondered if literally using the language that is in that charter should be applied to the Supreme Court in some fashion. Should there have to be one Supreme Court justice from every federal circuit, for instance, as one possibility? Or, and I know many of these judges, it's hard to say where they're from physically, because once they left home and went to college and law school and into the judicial system, some of them haven't lived, quote unquote, home where they're from in 20 or 30 years. So I don't know that I would apply that, but I certainly think it's food for thought. Let's put it that way. My specific question for Dom is how you would feel as a person of color, especially as a woman, to hear from a white person, especially a white woman, to refer to, I have often been tempted to reframe this discussion of reproductive rights as an ownership issue. Are men trying to own women's bodies? Who owns me? Who owns my uterus? But I've always had a slight, I would not want it to ever be taken as appropriating or in any way diminishing the history of slavery in the Black community. So I would just like your thoughts on that, because my background is as a women's advocate, women's everything, I guess you would say. And I have almost started to write a few pieces along that line and thought, no, white woman says that, it's going to sound. So what's your thoughts?
Thank you, Barbara, so much. You brought up two really, really great points. I do want to, before I address your second a question, I want to address the first thing you said about the Supreme Court, because you make a good point. Now, you know, there are currently 9 justices on the Supreme Court, and that is representative of the 9 districts in our country. Okay. Now, we, the 9 district courts, circuit courts, it was expanded to 9 because it went from 6 to 9. So then we expanded the court to 9. There's an argument to be made, possibly, that we can expand the court because now there's 13 circuit courts. There's an argument
but there currently is no requirement that says, for instance, and even if you expand it to 13, if right now all the judges on there represent, say, districts 1 through 12,
right,
but you have to appoint someone from the 13th circuit.
Right.
And right now, the last I checked, like 6 of the justices are all from, or 5 of them, from 2 of the East Coast. There's no one from out west on the court right now.
Right.
Let's put it that way. No one from our neck of the woods,
right,
from the 9th Circuit or anything else. So that's what I specifically mean about that, is that
yes,
they're to specifically restrict, which would take a constitutional amendment, probably.
It most certainly would. And, you know, your point, as well as, you know, again, the thought of expanding the courts, it's all things that we are now discussing as a country. And quite frankly, Barbara, there are conversations that we need to have because things must change. And in answer to your second question about, you know, using the term of ownership of a man owning a woman's body, Barbara, I first want to say to you, and I want to say this to all of you guys, not just Barbara, because I know Barbara's not the only woman on here who's a supporter of women's rights. I'm looking at other women here and men. You guys are our allies. We love you. I know you guys care. And so I want to say this as a Black woman, and listen, put it on me if anyone asks you, okay? It is completely okay. It is not disrespectful to the history of slavery to say, I do not want these men seeking to own my body. Because in the ownership of slavery, it was men, okay, who were seeking to own, or who were owning, the bodies of African slaves for so long. Also, men were also owning the bodies of women as well. Today, we are seeing this grab. It's almost like a fearful, terrifying grab to own something. Okay, there's no slavery anymore, right? Okay, we need to own this. We need to own a woman's, it's control. So in answer to your question, I think it's a beautiful thing. And I want to give you lots of love, Barbara, for even asking the question, because, you know, you didn't have to, but you did, because you really want to respect and dignify all in your pursuit for justice for women. And we need more women, not just of color, but white women who are in this together. We need you to not be afraid, okay? We need you to know that your voice is important, okay? We need you to know that you are necessary to the fight. Do you know it was white women coming together over the suffrage movement? And it was those civil rights fighters coming together that moved forward our country. So we need each other. We need your voice. And yes, Barbara, you say it, ownership over your bodies is not okay. You go for it, my friend.
Thank you, Barbara. We may have to cut some of these questions short. We'll have a question and answer session afterwards. but we're halfway through the program, and we want to make sure we get through the whole program. So I think we'll probably take one more here, but keep your hands up. We'll come back to you at the end. Leilani, is that how you say your name? Go ahead and unmute.
Yes.
Hi.
Yes. God bless you, saints. God bless you.
Thank
Sister Dom, you said that you were raised in the faith, and so you know scripture. I can tell that you've definitely spent some time in the word. My question to you is now, I understand God gives us free will, but this is a country that has slowly but surely gotten away from the precepts of God and scripture, and we've turned our back on Jehovah. We've turned our back on Yahweh. And so I truly believe that turning our backs from his laws and his commandments is what has opened us up to a lot of society deteriorating. Now, what would you have to say about a country that was founded on principle, laws, and values? A country that, like the Israel people, God's blessing was upon the USA. His light shined upon us. He blessed us because we were a country where you can have freedom and free will. But how much of that free will can we give before the next generation no longer submits to God's will, and then judgment falls upon the land? I truly believe that we're in a stage of judgment. I think that those who claim to know the name of Christ have been falling away into this new age Christianity, where it's I'm sending you energy and love, and we're forgetting that God is a God of love, but he is also consuming fire. So my question to you is, your convictions on that. What are you, a practicing believer? I don't want to say Christian, I say believer of Christ, a follower of Christ, because we know that the church has been tarnished. And so if Jesus was to come now in this new age, there would be a lot of tables he would be turning in these different so-called Christian people. So what would you say about that, sister?
Well, thank you, my friend Leilani, and my sister Leilani. I appreciate your words and your thoughts and the conviction with which you speak. I can feel your heart and your love, and it's inspiring to my spirit. I am someone, because of the trajectory of my life and the things that I've been through, because of the breadth and the width of countries and peoples and societies that I've seen. Maybe to some of you, I appear to be younger, but I'm most certainly not. I'm going to be honest with you. I am someone that believes in our Creator. I believe in, I support the idea and the thought and the belief that all of us can decide how we choose to honor our version or our idea of who that Creator is, you see, because we all have a different perspective, my friend Leilani, about who that Creator is. Some feel that that Creator is, in fact, Jesus Christ. Others feel that it is, another deity or a Hindu deity. And the United States of America is a land, as we try to rise to this ideal, right, Leilani? It is a country where we say, okay, we are going to coexist together. That's not easy because most countries in the world are homogenous, okay? But we are going to try to live together in harmony. Although you believe that, and I believe this, we're going to try to live in harmony and really base how we move together on the fact that we all deserve to live according to our own set of beliefs. So for me, I feel that it's important not even to focus on me, because it's not about me. It's about all of us. It's about the collective. It's about the unity. So no matter what I do believe in love and goodness. I believe in our Creator, and that we have inherent goodness in each and every one of us. We have to find the roadway and the road to building together on that pathway forward. And I do believe that is possible, and I'm working hard to ensure that we find that way.
All right, thank you, Dom. So I'm going to do my part. Looks like we may be reaching people even here, and we may have a more diverse audience than we realize. So, all right, so I minored in the study of, I minored in the study of women and men in society at the University of Southern California, and I learned my law degree at American University, Washington College of Law, which is a law school that was founded by women. I studied constitutional law and authored a textbook on foreign comparative law and social science entitled Social Issues in Global Perspective, Pornography. It was an examination of social attitudes and laws related to sexually explicit materials in different countries around the world. So I, like Dom, was raised in the evangelical church. I now write and speak about the intersection between religion and politics. And I've been doing a lot of work fighting for democracy. And that's why I started the Truth and Democracy Coalition to help build a movement to save democracy. And what I want to do right now is help you to understand the conservative Christian position on abortion and the role of religion in politics, which I've seen a lot in the chat about already. And first I want to tell you a little bit about myself, but actually quite a bit about myself. And it may take a little bit of time, but I think it's worth telling, even for the sake of posterity. What I'm going to be talking about is that when talking about abortion, one should use personal stories. Abortion is a complex issue. Many people are conflicted about it. Even the most ardent pro-lifer has some conflicts about it, particularly if it's their daughter or if it's them. So I attended a Braver Angels abortion debate, and what I found was that people, regardless of how strongly they feel about abortion, one way or another, have reservations about the impact that the restrictions will have on young women, and as well as about terminating the potential child in their womb. So it would be a mistake to assume that pro-lifers don't care about the women's rights and girls' rights in this regard, or that pro-choice people are not concerned about the child that they're carrying in their womb and don't have certain reservations about that. So when you actually listen to people, we might find that they're not as one-sided or extreme, that their views are more nuanced than we actually realize. So if you haven't heard of groups like Braver Angels, there are plenty of them. Check them out. A number of groups, Civic Genius, America Speaks. These are groups that are working to bring the country back together. Because it's really the divisiveness, and this is part of the problem that we're having now. Divisiveness is tearing the country apart and fueling the rise of authoritarianism. So that's a problem we have to face. Last month, we had Dr. Karen Tamirius talk to us about the power of personal stories and how to speak to people with whom we disagree. And you can find part 1 and part 2 of that on YouTube at tinyurl.com/democracy_under-fire video, or just search for the show, or on my podcast. So take a listen to her. She has a real good strategy. And there are other groups, people teaching people how to talk to people who we disagree with. Now, let's see. So many people have powerful stories to tell about abortion. And so that's why it's important to have these personal stories, because people can relate to stories in a way that they can't relate to reason and argument and logic and abstractions. So even I, as a man, I have a story related to abortion. So I grew up in the evangelical church in the 70s. My mother, who is with us today and is on the call, God bless her, is a committed evangelical who has her own nuisance point of view about abortion. Now, as a young man, I knew nothing about abortion. I didn't even know my mother was pro-life, or even what pro-life was. In my early years after high school, I went to community college. I took a class on interpersonal communications. And one assignment was to participate in a debate. And the professor asked me right there in front of the class, Richard, why don't you debate abortion? I said, great. I mean, I have to choose some topic to debate. I just have one question. What's abortion? So I was 19 years old. I just out of high school, 18 years old, 19 years old. I had no idea what abortion was. So I went to the library to find out. So I read through book after book from both sides of the debate, and still I didn't understand what abortion was. One side was yelling about their freedom to choose, their right to control their own bodies, how religious people were imposing their views on others and so forth. The other side screaming about abortion being murder and baby killing, but none of them actually described what an abortion was. It wasn't, they were all euphemisms, they were all abstractions. And I had a stack of books nearly 3 feet tall. Still, I didn't know what abortion was. It wasn't until I read a book by a priest that described what abortion was, talked about the conception and the process of abortion in concrete terms, that I finally understood what an abortion was. And I didn't necessarily agree with the priest's conclusions, but I appreciated the clear and detailed and plain language. And in the debate, I would eventually debate both sides of the issue. And I didn't really come out with a position on abortion at that time. I was simply, it didn't affect me, and I was interested in other things. So I transferred to the University of Southern California, and I knew I had some difficulty relating to women. So I decided I would take this introductory class to the study of women and men in society, which is USC's Gender Studies or Feminist Studies program. And it was taught by 3 participants, a gay male professor, a pro-feminist male professor, and a woman. And it had 3 exams of 2 midterms and a final. And after each exam, I had a mystical experience. I would turn my exam paper in early and I would ace all these exams. But most of the people would still be taking the exam when I walking up the ramp of the lecture hall. And the first time, after the first midterm, I saw this ball of light, white light right in front of me. And I probably exclaimed something, I don't remember, but I walked out thinking, wow, I just had a mystical experience, a experience like Paul had on the road to Damascus. Paul on the road to Damascus had been persecuting Christians. And he is actually the author of multiple books in the Bible. And there are many other books that are attributed to him. So, and some people say he's actually the founder of Christianity. And he had this vision where he saw this being of light appear to him as he was on the road to Damascus. And he heard the being of light, which he believed was Christ, the resurrected Christ, saying, "Why are you persecuting me?" Now, I thought, wow, that was a really great mystical experience. You come away with this sense of knowing something, but not quite knowing, being able to articulate it. And I thought, I've had mystical experiences similar, not like that, but different ones before. I would have more later, but I didn't, this is fairly rare, very rare. So I didn't expect it to happen again. But sure enough, on the next exam, I'm leaving the exam, turned my paper in early, walking up, not thinking anything like that would happen again. I mean, how could anything like that happen again? And then boom, an even bigger ball of white light right in front of me. I must have made an exclamation of something out loud, like a whoa or wow. But I was able to gather myself and leave the class. And I was like, wow, I really knew I was on the right track, that it was important for me to take this class, that I was learning new things. My professors, however, were not so sanguine or so happy with that. They called me in, especially the female professor was particularly upset if I interrupted the exam or disrupted the exam, there would be consequences. I tried to explain to them what happened, but they didn't really believe me. So on the final exam, I'm walking out and I'm saying, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to keep my mouth closed. If this light happens again, I'm going to keep my mouth closed. I'm not going to let anything escape my mouth. So I'm walking up, they're going to be holding, and then boom, this bigger beam of light, and I felt the air rush the throat, the vocalizations just to the top of the mouth. And then next thing I know, I'm smelling this acid smell, and I'm looking up, there's a paramedic above me and with smelling salts. And they were concerned that it was a seizure or something, but I knew that it wasn't a seizure. So they had a stretcher there. They wanted me to lay down. And no, I had to get out of there. So I just left. But so at that time, I understood. I understood exactly what Spirit was trying to tell me. And it was, why are you persecuting women? Why was I persecuting women? And so that's when I decided to minor in the study of women and men in society. I became a founding member of the Students' Alliance for a Non-Sexist Society. I became a feminist or pro-feminist anti-pornography activist. I became enamored with Catherine McKinnon, who is the woman who argued the sexual harassment cases and was a feminist anti-pornography author. And she developed the theory of sexual harassment. And I started a group called People Against Pornography. And eventually I would use all the knowledge. I would go around, speak at different universities, engage in debates and so forth. And eventually I would publish my book in law school, sort of a dissertation-like thing. And so, like Paul on the road to Damascus, I had that type of conversion experience in a women's studies class. So now I want to talk a little bit about the Supreme and ask the Supreme Court, why are you persecuting women and girls? Mm-hmm. What does this amount to this decision except allowing states to force women and girls to bear children against their will. I mean, with all the technologies that's out there, pregnancies can be terminated at very early stages. The Roe decision was a compromise. We've never had absolute complete right to an abortion at every stage during the pregnancy. It's always been a compromise position to balance the interest of women and girls with the interest of life. And there's a reasonable point at which point one could say that we should allow these women and girls not to be forced to bear children against their will, and a point where we say, well, maybe it's a little too late for the potential child. But so the struggle to obey, so we have an unbalanced court, and since we get an unbalanced decision, and now, and somehow the Republicans have learned to rule by being a minority. And so this battle is now moving to the states. So I want to encourage everyone to be involved in that battle at the states, because this is just really one of the first shoes to drop. This is how the regime justifies itself, legitimates itself morally, and at the same time takes control and power. So so we need to, so that's going to be going at the states, and there's going to be more to come. And really the first shoe to drop was the money in politics and the Citizens United decision. Totally out of line with common sense and values to turn money into speech and corporations into people. That's the first step. We're going to lose our rights. And this is just the first one. There's more coming. And whatever we're doing, it's not working. And so my presentation is going to have a little bit of a different take. I'm focusing on understanding the conservative perspective on abortion. I want to talk about the role of religious beliefs and values in politics and provide some guidance for what we can do. So you take the biblical perspective or the supernatural perspective, the religious perspective, and we go to, and we see that, like Dom said, God breathed breath into the clay Adam. And that word breath also means spirit. So God breathed spirit. Life is animated by spirit. The prophet Jeremiah said, having God speaking to him, God says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. The prophet Isaiah said the Lord had called him from the womb, from the body of his mother. He named my name. And the name in the ancient world carries the essence of the individual. That was the belief, and we'll see that more. The Apostle Paul, as I said, who wrote many of the books of the New Testament, said that God had set him apart before he was born. The Psalms, which is usually attributed to King David, says, "For you formed my inward parts, you knitted me together in my mother's womb." Even Christians have some sense of being predestined or some prior existence. We said God chose us in him before the foundation of the world. that we should be holy and blameless before him in love. And this is from Ephesians. Ephesians is a very spiritual book, but also a very political book that talks about the powers and authorities. The powers and authorities include the empire and the rulers. And so there was no separation of religion and politics in the ancient world. It was a theology, theocracies, where everything was just theocracy. The kings and emperors were gods and sons of gods. Priests were politicians, and that's just how it was in the ancient world. So, so the same book says God chose us in him before the foundation of the world, and then he predestined us for adoption as sons through Jesus Christ, according to the purpose of his will. And Paul writes to the Romans, he says, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, in order that they may be firstborn among many brothers. And those whom he predestined, he also called, and those who he called, he justified, and those who he justified, he glorified. And of course, Jesus, right, was foreknown before the foundation of the world and was made manifest in these last times for the sake of you, says the author of 1 Peter. And then there's John 3:16, the verse that they always hold up at football games and other places, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. And I want to add verse 17 to that because it's important, I think, to understanding that passage and is often overlooked. But God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. Yes. So see if you can find out where that noise is coming from, Ellie, and mute. Okay, so the angel Gabriel, let me see if I can find that there. All right. So the angel Gabriel, when Joseph learned that Mary, his fiance, was pregnant, had planned to dismiss Mary quietly, because adultery was a death penalty offense. So a woman being found pregnant, not by her husband, could face death by stoning. So Joseph didn't want to put Mary through that or hold her up to ridicule. So he planned to quietly dismiss her, but the angel Gabriel came to him and said, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the child conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. Now, the Gospel of Luke takes this problem differently, the problem of being pregnant without having, outside of wedlock, or outside, not by your husband. And what he does is he has Mary make haste to take this long trip to see a distant relative in Judea. Mary is about 13 years old, and this trip would have to have been like 100 miles or something around Samaria. And so she makes haste to see this distant relative, Elizabeth. Now, Elizabeth is the wife of a high priest named Zachariah. And what we know about them is that both of them were righteous before God, living blamelessly according to all the commandments of, of the Lord. So what does that mean? That says basically that if Mary goes before Zachariah, it's lights out for her. In other words, they obey the law, and the law called for death by stoning. So, but the angel Gabriel comes to Zechariah, goes into the Holy of Holies, the area of the temple where only priests are allowed. He's assigned that day. And it's a vision. He sees the angel Gabriel. And the angel Gabriel tells him, your wife will bear a son and you will name him John. This is John the Baptist that is being predestined. And Zechariah says, how do I know this to be true? I mean, I'm an old man and my wife is old. And the angel Gabriel gets upset. And this priest should have known. You're talking to the angel Gabriel in the Holy of Holies, you should know. And so he says, because you did not believe my words, which will be fulfilled in your time, you will become mute, unable to speak until the day these things occur, which means Mary's saved, right? When the angel comes to Mary, she says simply the same thing. How do I know? Because I'm a virgin. But when she arrives to Mary, and Mary hears, or to Elizabeth, and Elizabeth hears Mary's greeting, the child in Elizabeth's room leapt in her room, it is said, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit and exclaimed with a loud cry, blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. And why has this happened to me, that the mother of my Lord comes to me? For as soon as I heard the sound of your greeting, the child in my womb leapt for joy. And blessed is she who believed that there would be a fulfillment of what was spoken her by the Lord. And that's when Mary breaks into her famous song, the Magnificat, in which she says things like, God brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly, has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty, according to the promise he made to our ancestors, to Abraham and the descendants. And Abraham's God has promised Abraham's seed would make a great nation. And so there's a lot of this imagery of pronatalism in the Bible. Israel was surrounded by enemies and needed to grow to become a strong nation. So,
Richard, I think I'm losing you here. So I mean, I really did want to understand the pro-choice position in evangelicalism or Catholicism or any other biblical basis, but you're losing me in terms of understanding the direct connection between the pro-choice position and the Bible. I feel like you're getting into a lot of things that are hard to follow for someone who is trying to talk to Christians about choice.
Well,
so,
let me.
That?
Yeah, I'm moving away from that right now. So the Catholics, and really, I'm not sure that that's the objective of my presentation, although I will tell you how to talk to Christians about it. But I want you to understand the depths with which these beliefs come and where they come from and why it's not all evil. And I think that's the first step.
Seems to me that it's an emotional thing. I've talked to lots and lots of self-proclaimed pro-lifers, and it's an emotional thing to get really worked up about the idea of murdering babies. Their idea of an abortion is a perfectly healthy fetus being killed literally the day before full term. I mean, it's just astounding. They don't need education about what the Bible means. They need education about the facts of life, the situations of women. I believe there was somebody that worked on creating and compiling stories of abortion and the situations that people got into. And they really help illustrate the fact that women in difficult circumstances do not deserve the contempt and the hatred that the pro-lifers put upon them. And the way that they style physicians who do abortions as evil monsters. I've practiced OBGYN for more than 35 years, and I can tell you how tightly the option of abortion is integrated into medical care. And this is just a disaster that we're not going to have that choice now. Women are going to die, not just from botched back alley abortions, but because physicians will be afraid to intervene and have to worry about being prosecuted for murder if they make appropriate medical decisions.
That's correct. And why? And the question is not what they need to know, because we're not really talking to them right now. The question is, what do we need to know? And so I just want to talk about the value of life being sacred in the Christian religion. And that's the Catholic approach. They also say that life is, you can't kill because that's God's power, but the sacredness of life is in the Genesis myth. And it's important to remember that at creation, everyone was a vegetarian. You did not need to kill to survive. God says, I've given you every tree and seed and its fruit, and you shall have them for food. And he's given even all the beasts of the land, every green plant, for food. We're vegetarians. God did not want to kill. In fact, it really isn't until the story of Cain and Abel, when Cain kills his brother, and God doesn't kill him for doing that. God sends him away, and he says, but they're going to see me. I'm going to be a wanderer, and they're going to kill me. And God says, no, I'm going to put a mark on you so that anybody who sees you will not kill you. And that mark, that terrible things have been spoken about it, but that mark, at a minimum, it says, do not kill. So it wasn't until Noah when God authorized the eating of flesh, and so of meat, and also established the death penalty for killing another human being. And so, yeah, so here's what we see is that life is sacred because God also required a sacrifice. And that's very different from how we view life when we just pick up a piece of meat. All life is sacred. And that's why you had to make a sacrifice to recognize that life is sacred.
Richard, I don't know how to cut through all of that in order to be able to reach religious people to understand that. I mean, is it basically a losing proposition here to be able to try to reason with religious people on their own territory? Because I'm hearing a lot of stuff about the sanctity of life, and that's the I get chapter and verse on that from pro-life people. But what I'm trying to understand is the value of women and the value of because of the fact that the Bible sanctions slavery. Where does it get, where do we get away from that? Did Jesus get away from that? Did Jesus say, look, slavery is wrong and owning another person's body is wrong? I don't know enough about Jesus or his writings to even understand whether that's possible to have that type of discussion.
Well, Jesus, I think, overturns this rule about the death penalty because he's there with use of power when they kill him for advocating for a just society. And there is a part of the Bible, Exodus, that talks, the Bible doesn't really talk about abortion per se. There is a passage that says if two men scuffle and deal a blow to a pregnant woman and the child aborts forth, then the man is fined That's Exodus 21, 22 to 25, not charged with murder. Now, that doesn't match with our laws. Our laws, if you do that, you could be charged for that death. But in the ancient time, they were fined. Unless the woman was harmed, then it's an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a hand for a hand. And it's imposed by, the fine is imposed by the husband or male judges because they're property. Women are considered property. So
that's a really good point. So wait, so you skipped over this a bit, but you said something about that the whole law about the two men scuffling, that the woman, that the child, the pregnant woman, is not two different people, basically. Am I understanding that, what you're saying correctly?
Well, she's kind of property, and although if she were killed, it would be just like murder and the death, the same penalty, or injured, it would be the same penalty. But sort of in a way, it's really more of the man's property than it is the woman being a separate individual. But the child, it's not a murder. You're not killing a human being. You're subject to a fine for that.
Richard, can I possibly interrupt for just a minute on this exact point? Thank you. Christianity is divided by three doctrines of ensoulment. Two of them are pre-Christian in authorship. The third one, authored by a Christian, St. Thomas Aquinas in the 1200s. Mm-hmm. The first two that are pre-Christian, one was by Pythagoras, who was a great mathematician in ancient times, but a few hundred years or so before Jesus was born, he decided to make his own religion, which is fine. That's what people do. Whether Moses, Muhammad, Saul, or Paul on the road to Damascus, or Joseph Smith, I guess it was, is that the right name, in New York State for Mormonism. And 1,600 different religions all have an exclusive, unique grip on truth and reality, okay? So it's all ideas, it's all mental. Now, the Pythagorean idea, one of the doctrines was, its doctrine of ensoulment, was that there was a spirit of life in the product of conception. If you can't recognize and relate that to all the crap that's going around now for 30, 40 years, you're unaware, okay? The product of conception was just the pre-scientific language for a fertilized egg. All right, so that's the origin of life begins at conception. And for Pope Francis, the fertilized egg is a one-cell baby and all the value that goes along with that. The other pre-Christian version, which you cited in the book of Genesis and Exodus, chapters 21 to 25, thou shalt not kill. But that when does that protected human life begin? That's ensoulment. When does it end? That's desoulment, theologically speaking. And what's the nature? We only have to concern on this issue with the ensoulment. When does a new human life begin? And as you point out, the Bible story in Exodus chapters 21 to 25, two endings to that story. When the woman gets hit, the pregnant woman gets hit by the blow. One of the guys wasn't even trying to hit her, but somehow she got struck. And down she goes. And in the first ending, she's killed. And then the next chapter begins. What happens to one of the men or both men? So the next chapter starts off life for life. So at least we know that a woman, just like a man, a boy, or a girl, is indeed a human life, a human being, which some people seem to doubt a little bit. The other ending of the story, she lives, but the fetus is killed. As you point out, the man has to pay either fine or damages for interfering with her reproductive interest, the assumption being she wanted to deliver a baby. So that's the stark opposite of the Pythagorean idea that even a fetus is not yet the life of a human being. Its potential is developing, but not there yet. The third version from Thomas Aquinas in 1200s, I think it was, is that life begins with quickening or the first movement. But there's even uncertainty about what he meant or what the translators meant. That might have been based on an ancient Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible into ancient Greek, which occurred around 197 BC, something like that. And they made some mistakes in the translation, which you would expect. One of them was a mistranslation of the Hebrew word for breath, and they translated it as move or movement. So the question is ambiguous. Any old movement or just the movement associated with breathing, which would mean chest movement? So even that's a little uncertain.
Yeah.
A scientific and values-based approach would be that when do you actually get what's the minimal thing that you need to support the beginning of mentality? Just a little itty bitty. That's all it takes.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I need to get through because I'm already going over. I didn't really time this very well. So I want to move to 1963 with Betty Friedan's book, The Feminine Mystique, in which she identified the problem with No Name, which was the idea that women were dissatisfied with their roles as homemakers. Their talent was being wasted. They didn't have autonomy. And so, and also the idea that the personal is political, that their personal lives and the problems they were having, the problem without name, was actually a political problem. And it's important to recognize that personal beliefs and values, we want to say religions people should not have their personal beliefs and values influence their political decisions. But that's like coming from outer space. There's no world in which our personal beliefs and values do not influence our political decisions. So there's no way we can go no politics with these people, or in religion, no politics. In fact, when we separated the church and the state, we did not separate religion from politics. We only separated the institutions of the church and the state. Religion has been political all along. It's political now. It's going to be political in the state into the foreseeable future. To restrict people from having their religious values influence their political beliefs would be against the First Amendment. Church and state, the state is supposed to be benevolent towards the church. It's not supposed to take sides or choose one position over another. And it's only the state that is precluded from acting. Churches can do anything they want. It's only the tax code that prevents them from engaging in campaigning. And then, but on social issues, the churches do and should have actions. So religion is about philosophy, theology, ideology, beliefs, and values. So even some spiritual people feel the same way, and people of other religions feel the same way about abortion. The church should be engaged in social justice advocacy. And there's a lot of things that help support the idea that women and lifting up the lowly, being concerned for the lives of women and girls and children and taking their interest in the heart are very important. And Jesus, over and over, women would defeat him in debate. I don't think there's any denial that we need to also consider the interest of women and girls. So I want to encourage everyone to get personal. Don't try and say that religion cannot become into our political discussion. It's already there. It's going to be there. It's not going away. Tell your personal story. Listen to what other people have to say before you tell them your appearance. Ask them questions. Find something to agree with. A lot of the stuff Dr. Tamarius told us again, because this is not just about freedom. It's about justice. It's about our community and how we treat other women. And then we have this attack on Christianity, Christian nationalism. It's ill-defined. And we don't want to, in short, we just don't want to make religion the enemy, Christians the enemy. It's not, we have this idea that somehow we get these ideas and they all bubble up and that's what creates our social opinion. No, that's not how it works. Propagandists know what our opinions are. They disseminate propaganda down that uses our already held positions to make us more extreme or persuade us to their view. This is a top-down problem, not a bottom-up problem. So what do? We need to welcome Christians into our groups. We need to use Christian rhetoric, biblical rhetoric, religious, spiritual readily. We don't want to be dismissive or abusive towards people who are on our side. We want to support them and bring them on. And don't worry, God is on our side. So, so I have a saying, they say, hate the sin, not the sinner. I say, hate the propaganda, not the people. Hate the propagandist who keep spreading lies, not the people who are lost sheep, as Jesus would say.
Just like Jim Jones from Jonestown. That's a false prophet, right?
Yeah.
That's a guy to blame, right?
Yeah, exactly. Tim, go ahead.
Sorry. That's why I also created another international law. It's still not named yet, but right now it's called Crimes Against Religion.
All right, great. Thank you.
The idea is to, it's supposed to separate. The main idea is it's supposed to separate hate groups from religion, like Al Qaeda, ISIS, Al Qaeda, ISIS, the neo-Nazis, anyone who uses hate anyone who tried to use religion to justifies their crimes, like that.
Okay, thank you, Jeffrey. Tim, go ahead. If you can unmute.
Yeah, I agree with the other people that have been saying here that I don't think it's terribly helpful to go too much into the biblical stuff. I absolutely respect your attachment to the biblical texts and the stories. I think there's good evidence to think that a lot of them are not even true, but it's not the truth, it's the meaning of them that counts to those who attach meaning to it. I really appreciated Dom Jones' comments, and I thought she struck just the right balance. She appears to be a person of faith, as they put it, but not pushy, and I really appreciated that. I am actually the leader, and Don, who was on earlier, is a member of the North Texas Church of Free Thought here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We are a non-supernaturalist church, so that's where we're coming from. I don't know any of us that are not for abortion rights. I think that, what the Supreme Court's done is very scary. And if you read the decision, the opinion, as I have, the majority, there's a lot of things that are said and unsaid. I think this is part of a long-term project to do a lot of damage to our country. This is not something that was just written in a few months since it was leaked, or for a couple of months before it was leaked. There's a lot of stuff there that clearly is in the works. Roe originally had a passage where it said that the people, Blackmun and the others who agreed with them in that opinion, said that they're not persuaded that life begins any time before actual birth, and that the Constitution and other laws always made people's rights begin at birth. Absent other things like, obviously, if a woman is pregnant and the partner dies before she gives birth, why the child to which she gives birth should have inheritance rights and things like that. So this is a real miscarriage of justice, because the majority in Dobbs did not even follow their own argument in terms of history and tradition and so forth. Not to mention the fact that, as Dom said, it's really a violation of state-church separation, in as much as they're drawing on things from the 14th, 15th, 16th century. We're talking about people who were just soaked in the kind of Christianity that everybody accepted then, but that would be considered not even fundamentalist today. They were hanging, burning witches and all this sort of thing. I thought for sure when that draft opinion came out that the reference to Sir Matthew Hale would be removed, because it was so embarrassing that the guy had convicted and sent to their deaths women convicted of witchcraft. It was still there when the final opinion came out. To me, that was just amazing. So I think we need to find common cause by talking about freedom, about if God gave people free will, then why wouldn't he intend for them to use it? I don't believe free will comes from people. I did put up a link to one of our church presentations having to do with free will for anybody who wants to see another perspective. We're not trying to proselytize, but there are different ways of looking at all these things. And as Dom said, if we're going to exist in a civil society, we have to allow for other people to have their opinions and have their practices, and to change those opinions and practices if they choose, because none of us are one thing forever and ever. So that's basically what I have to say. And I really hope that this could be the beginning, or at least we can set the example for people to band together for letting people make their own decisions. And as I said earlier, too, I'm a practicing OBGYN, and I'll be glad to talk about it. I have lots of stories as to why regular restrictions and prohibitions on abortion are stupid and are going to hurt women. And I think it's stories like that. To me, that's the kind of thing, not Bible stories, that's going to convince people and get them to start thinking, oh, yeah, I guess that could happen. That's not good. How are we going to change the law to accommodate that? And it will ultimately be the threads that when you start pulling on them will cause the whole anti-abortion prohibition from the moment of fertilization to fall apart. But it may take a long time. Dom, I was going to ask you too, really, you mentioned expanding the Supreme Court. Somebody else talked about that. Since the Supreme Court justices are not elected, isn't that really the only way that we're going to be able to get by this? And wouldn't the goal be to get that happening as soon as possible? Because we can't let 50 years go by before you get a Supreme Court that is going to go back and reinstate Roe. It needs to be done as soon as possible, and to style it as, hey, this was a complete miscarriage of justice, and to have a good opinion that points out how deeply rooted what they have ruled is in theology and things that might not appear to be theological, that appear to be historical, but in fact are theological because it's based on, 14th, 15th century England steeped in Christianity.
I wanted to go ahead, Dom. Well, I just wanted to say that I'm sorry I didn't talk really about what people wanted to hear, but it was really what I thought people needed to hear. Now, the other thing is that this is certainly, people can believe in the supernatural or not believe in the supernatural. This should have nothing to do with that. It should have nothing to do with whether people believe in the supernatural or not. We can't make Christians the enemy. We can't make the supernatural the enemy. We can't make religion the enemy. That would be a mistake. Go ahead, Dom.
Richard, I agree with you. We can't make anyone the enemy. And Tim, thank you so much for your work, honestly, first off, as an OBGYN, because that is a very important work that you are doing. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, where you are in Texas, for what you are doing. It's valuable to women, and the way you are approaching it, you're not just clearly working with the women in the hospital in your office, but you're also in the background doing the good work and being on these kinds of discussions, which is so important. So thank you for that. And Richard's point is correct that, people are going to believe and have these ideas about their religion. They're going to be Christian, and it's going to influence the way they look at their politics. But here's the point that I really would hope that we can all take away from this, and maybe this can create something further in our hearts moving forward, is that, yes, let's say, for example, I am someone, this is hypothetical, I'm a Christian, I believe that these things are wrong, and I choose not to do it, and I choose to tell my friends and teach maybe my own children not to do it. That's my decision, and it influences my politics. That's fine. The discussion at hand here, and again, to Tim's point, in the Supreme Court, what they've chosen to do is, we are a nation of over 330 million people. And we're talking about Christianity and Catholicism, but there's so many other religions that we're not pinpointing, right? Buddhism, Hinduism, all kinds of other practices, New Age faiths and beliefs, everything under the sun. Here's the point. This is America. We are the great experiment. We are the great experiment of the world. Can we, of different shades and ethnicities and races, can we, of different principles, of different beliefs, and of different religious ideologies, coexist in unity? That is the question that is clashing us against one another today in the streets. That is the question that we are seeking to find the truth to. And as it relates to the Supreme Court, Tim, absolutely. We do, in fact, if we are going to balance things out, again, for freedoms for all, it's going to have to be a situation of packing the court, as salacious as that may sound right now in politics, to balance things out so that our democracy is not leaning in one way or another. And to Richard Procita's point, because I absolutely appreciate what Richard brought out with us, and it was needed to say, Richard, we want to make sure that we do not demonize conservatives. We do not demonize people who do believe heartily in Christ Jesus, and their take is abortion is evil. That's okay. This is the point, everyone. It's okay if someone thinks it's wrong. That's their prerogative. And it's okay if someone thinks it's not. we need to learn that we have limits and we do not get to intercede into the space of one another's thoughts and tell each other how to live. And our government should not be doing that. Flat. That's all.
I could not agree more. And I will just add that I think part of the problem is that there's really an asymmetry. The people who are so morally opposed, the anti-abortion zealots, they do not really appreciate the point of view that says, no, a fertilized egg is not a human being. I mean, look at Mississippi. I mean, that proposition they had on the ballot went down like 53 to 47. I mean, it was, not an overwhelming, but it certainly was a huge majority that voted that down. So obviously they gave that up and decided to push, they're going to do it through the Supreme Court because that's how you can get things done without having to win elections. But I think that for years and years and years that people have just had to listen to this fertilized eggs are people type stuff. And there's been just no pushback on the part of wiser heads because they were trusting that Roe would protect us. And I mean, that's reflected by the fact that the Democrats, when they had the chance, never codified Roe. They had almost 50 years to do it. And they just figured they were just, content and complacent in the idea that Roe was always going to be there. But we had people working behind the scenes to make sure that it was not going to be there. And now we find ourselves where we're at. And so now is the time we have to start pushing back and start calling people to account, especially I think some of these religious people that want to reduce humanity to chromosomes. And we see this with the LGBTs as well, with their hatred against those groups. They're trying to reduce people to chromosomes, genetics, protoplasm. I mean, how is that spiritual? I mean, if you've ever raised children, you know that, I mean, if you gave birth to an infant and took it into the pediatrician after a few weeks and said, hey, this kid does not seem to be developing, and they took a look and said, yeah, this kid's got a rare disorder, they're always going to be a newborn. You will always have to get up at 2 a.m. for feedings. How many people would be happy with that? How many people would not turn that kind of kid into an institution because it was never going to be a person? Fortunately, we don't have to deal with that. But, these kinds of thought experiments, like the thought experiment of the violinist, the world famous violinist, does everybody know about that? I mean, these are a lot of thought has gone into this whole question of abortion. And unfortunately, the public really doesn't know most of it. And the pro-lifers don't either. All they know is their abortion is murder.
And one of the problems that I think is I'm not seeing any solutions other than to fight for democracy, because I think when we have a real democracy and we have a flawed democracy now that really reflects the will of the people, we'll be able to solve these problems. But we are in a bad way right now. And I'm not really seeing any other way except talking to people and trying to win elections. But
right.
I'm not seeing a lot of solutions out there.
Richard, I want to address that really quickly before. And I know, guys, we've been on for a little bit. It's Sunday. Thank you for spending your Sunday. I know I have things happening after this, but we're all here for an important call. So let's just finish this conversation together, because we're getting to something good here. And here's what it is, to Richard's point. I know, Richard, we can get despondent. We can feel like we're the solutions. Please listen to what I'm telling you, because I'm telling you, I'm in my community as a Black woman in Huntington Beach. It is not easy. I have a business and I work very hard to try to connect us and bring us together in unity across our own beliefs. I have people who attend my studio who may believe, abortion is, wrong, but they still come, they support, we all care about each other because we're human. So I want to say this, Richard, here is a solution. And I know it might seem like, oh, that's not good enough. We need to start somewhere. So this is what I'm going to say to you all. Right now, this discussion we are having is the beginning. Richard, what you have put together with Truth and Democracy Coalition is beautiful. And I honor you, my brother, in your fight that you are doing. I love you so much, Richard. What we are all doing right now, this is the beginning. That's one. Two, Richard said, getting people elected who truly believe in what we believe in, who we know we can feel them. We can feel their heart, and we know that they are in harmony with us, and we will hold them to account. That's something that I am looking into as a possible run for Congress in 2024. Different discussion. But I'm telling you right now, we get to work together. So that's the second part. The other part is this. It's a movement. It's a movement, Richard. We are creating a movement. Movements change the world. Do you see what happened in Sri Lanka when they want their president to step down and the way they all protested and galvanized around the presidential palace? I said, America knows nothing about protests. My word. I mean, it was a sea of human beings as far as the eye could see. They were saying, you're going to step down. We need to galvanize and build a movement. If we built a movement so strong, and don't believe we can't, because I believe in you and I certainly believe in me. I do not have my own children and I am choosing to sacrifice that. You know why? Because I believe I'm built to serve. That's why. And I believe service is at the core of all of our purpose on this earth. Just like Tim being a doctor, just like all of you doing what you're doing in your life. Okay? So this is what I'm here to tell you right now. We are building a movement that will move forward in trusting that we as a collection of Americans can obtain some sort of harmony. And here's the thing, religion, race, whatever your beliefs, abortion put aside. This is what we have to say. One message. You ready? Here it is. We all get to choose what we want to do with our lives. Each and every over 330 million of us. The government in power, Supreme Court, presidential, legislative, Congress does not get to tell us what we can do with our bodies. We put you up there in office. We want you to serve us all and do what we are asking you to do. But here's the deal. That far up, you will not tell everyone, and women especially, they can't do what they want with their body. That's what we demand. That's what we're asking. How do we get it done, Richard? A movement. A movement.
Let me get Ken in here. Ken, go ahead.
Well, there's only time for maybe one thing. I have several, but one thing is that litigation really has to be on the First and 13th Amendments of the Constitution, not only religious liberty, but also the 13th Amendment. The only difference between the two classes of disenfranchised people in 1787 was that the kidnapped people from Africa, they were held in kind of slavery by title. What they're doing now is not quite that, because you still can't rent or lease a woman and sell her. But they do want the right of possession by state legislation and federal too. So they, being possessed as an object, the right of possession is pretty much the right to do with your possessed object, whatever the hell you want to do with it. That's women and girls from the start of puberty to deep into or the end of menopause when they age out of being reproductive. So that's the 13th Amendment, involved slave labor in the uterine field, not to raise new crops of cotton, but new crops of babies. You can't do that. You can do it to sheep and cattle and so forth, not to human cattle. That's the contradiction in terms. So that's where litigation has to go.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Let me get somebody who hasn't spoke yet. Eugene, go ahead.
Okay, well, we're trying to do it from a different avenue. We are making movies. We started a whole new studio called Made to Order Movies. And what we do is we make movies that are solution films, a whole new genre. And we'll never run out of material because there's too many problems to be solved. But we say it's more than a movie. And like Dom said, it's more than a movie. It's a movement. And it's not just a national movement, it's an international movement. So our studio is international. We have no borders and no walls, and we specialize in solution films.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Eugene.
Okay. Okay, Jeffrey, you're the last one. You get to say what you want to say there.
Find my group.
What's that? Go ahead, Jeffrey.
This is the final word before we close out, right?
Yes.
Okay. First off, Eugene, I just made a message for you because I'm interested in that thing, and I'd like to be in touch with you. Probably same with you, Dom, and all that. And secondly, about the you notice that if some of you haven't noticed, I put a post in the comment section saying, outline what I believe to be considered crimes against religion. If you notice that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jeffrey.
And one more. Let's close out with the democracide idea. I wanted to close out with it. So you use the hashtag stop democracide to get the message around.
Okay. Thank you.
And don't forget, if you want to join the move, take part in the organization, the links in the chat box.
Thank you. I want to apologize for going over. I spent too much time on the first part of my speech, and I didn't really time it very well. I've been on vacation and putting it together here. So, but I want to thank everybody for coming, and we'll keep in touch, and we'll send out some actions and other things. Watch the hearings, talk to people about the hearings. I really think that democracy and building a pro-democracy movement is the only way to stop this assault on our rights. And I really believe that this is only the first few attacks on our rights that are coming. So we really need to build this movement together, understand the other side so that we can speak to them. And thank you, Dom, for coming too. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Keep it up. This is great work. We're doing it, guys. Keep going.
Thank you. Bye now.